Hello, guys, and welcome to my Thanksgiving games and Black Friday game predictions video. I am going to go in order of what games I think are the most relevant. And with that being said, we're starting off with Cowboys Giants, as you guys might imagine. I personally think that this game could be really, really entertaining just because they're two teams in the same division. I feel like I would actually lean in the way of the Giants to win just because I hate the Cowboys at home. Like, I feel like even now, if I go with them, they're going to disappoint me, which will be hilarious, but I want to get the pick right. And I'm leaning Cowboys. Obviously, Cooper Rush looked way, way, way better against a decent defense his second start of the season. They only give Dallas a 3.5 point favorite, for this game. And the under, which is 37.5, has the highest odds. And I feel like that's a tiny amount of points. I feel like they're saying that this is going to be kind of a repeat of how it was earlier this year. Where the Giants, I mean, they held Dallas and they had a shot to win. They just couldn't pull it out at the very end of the game. But they obviously had Daniel Jones. And overall, I think that CD is still kind of playing well. He's been sneaky high, but it's been overshadowed by how bad the Cowboys are. And then this week we hear that, oh, it's not crazy to say that McCarthy might be extended. Is that some sort of a smokescreen? I think that Jerry doesn't want his Thanksgiving ruined by going 0-6 at home. And to the Giants, no less, who their only wins are on the road this year. But with that being said, I'm obviously going to go with Dallas. Dallas, if you disappoint me, you know what? I could care less. Moving on to the next game. The next game that I think is the least relevant is Raiders Chiefs. The Raiders not really playing for anything but pride at this point. The Chiefs, as we all know and wanted, most of us anyway, almost lost to the Panthers. And then you got Mahomes that's pulling a Lamar. Obviously not with the speed, but with a fat run to really secure their victory. And, keep them out of the risk of losing to the Panthers, who are arguably one of the worst teams in the league, but have been playing better after Bryce Young had some sitting down time, I guess. And then he comes back and he looks better. And props to Carolina. I mean, they have nothing to play for. But yeah, the Raiders and the Chiefs. Obviously, Crosby is a menace. It's a divisional game. It's at Arrowhead. I'm not sure why they, in all honesty, they had this game at Arrowhead. I guess, I don't even know if it's the first or second matchup of these divisional teams, but who really cares? I think the Chiefs hand the Raiders their 10th loss of the season. And it's like 12.5 point favorites. Good Lord. Moving on to the next game. This might seem a little controversial, but I'm saying the second most relevant game, of Thanksgiving is Bears Lions. You might be willing to say that, hey, the Bears could still make the playoffs. They obviously played really well last week. I think that Caleb definitely did take a step in the right direction against a defense that hasn't been free for many quarterbacks this year. And I like that he threw down the field a lot more consistently. The only thing that I really hated was you get to overtime, you win the toss, and then you revert back to this where you're holding it too damn long and you essentially shoot your chances in the foot to your team. Because obviously a team like the Vikings, they're incredibly hard to stop with how many weapons they have, and it looked easy for them to score on you and seal the game. And I guess move the ball on you and then kick a field goal and win the game. But another divisional game. We obviously all know that the Lions, this is, maybe the best defense they've played this year. And we all know that the Bears, their defense, has been pretty good. And it's like, yeah, we look at who the Lions have played. Some of the top defense, in my opinion, that they have played would be, Minnesota, who they obviously scored 31 on. That was a close game. Green Bay, where, it would have been a 17-14 game without a pick six from Love. And then, the third best, I guess I would say Houston. So it's like not a lot of top tier defensive talent have they played. And I would say that Chicago, I don't know really, or think, I guess, I guess you could say Tampa Bay, they were really good, but it's like the beginning part of the season with the, that being the second week or whatever. I just think that, maybe you can't say that like, oh, their offense wasn't reeling, the second week of the season, even though Goff did throw for 300 yards that week. But looking at this, obviously Goff has had, almost 700 yards passing these last 2 weeks. And they were against Jacksonville and Indianapolis. But looking at this, Chicago has not played well on the road, mainly on Sundays. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they get a Thursday game. And then you look at the Lions, for whatever reason, on Thanksgiving, they've lost like their last 7 on Thanksgiving. And obviously they host every year. And all of those games were 1 score or less. I think the Bears can get scrappy because this is kind of their season. They're on the opposite trajectory of the Lions, where they've lost their last 5. And obviously 2 crazy losses. The Packers, I'll say it as a Packers fan, we probably should have lost, in all honesty. No, I don't actually think that the, play that Karl Brooks made was illegal, because it doesn't look like he propped himself up or really used the center. And everyone's like, oh, well, he touched him and he's not supposed to be able to touch him. But then we've had other blocks, that have looked similar the other, last week and then the week before that were no calls. So I don't really know what to say about the field. Maybe the refs just don't know the rule anymore. But looking at this game, I'm definitely going with the Lions. But I have optimism that the Bears can give them a run for their money, since their offense seems to be taking form after firing Shane Waldron. Now for the final game of our, of Thanksgiving, we have Green Bay hosting the Dolphins. As we all know, Tua's terrible in the cold. I think they said that if it's below 30 degrees, which I think the start of the game, it's supposed to be like 28 degrees. It's obviously a night game. And with that being said, I remember the last time the Packers played the Dolphins, our defense was getting absolutely scorched And then I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, I think that Tua got injured that game. Or maybe I'm wrong. Now I'm trying to remember exactly, but we were at least able to pick off Tua in the second half. I remember Jair Alexander, whom honestly may or may not play, picked him off because he floated it too far above, I think, Hill or somebody. And they had a really funny press conference, that people still post. But thinking about this, obviously Green Bay, were heavily favored coming off a game where we just handled the 49ers. And Josh Jacobs obviously was just breaking tackles. They say that the Dolphins, too, are not very good at, making tackles. And that is one thing that I have said about them, whenever I watch their defense, is that their tackling is nowhere near where I would want it to be for them to prove that they are a, competent playoff team. In previous years, obviously. We don't know whether the Dolphins will make the playoffs this year. It's obviously kind of a long stretch. But it's not like they're completely out of it, and Tua has been looking very good. I think my Packers, even without Romeo Doubs, who's in concussion, should be able to do really well against this defense because the Dolphins have Kendall Fuller has a concussion, so he's likely not to play. And then interestingly enough, I was looking at the injury reports, even though, we only, at the point of recording this video, I've only got 1 day's worth of reports on who didn't practice, who was limited, and, who was a full practice, but with an injury designation. But Jalen Ramsey, it doesn't say knee, it says knees. So both his knees are troubling him. That does not sound very good from your best corner. And to me, LaFleur has, back when we had Adams and Rodgers, he exposed, Ramsey quite a bit. And then we obviously don't have a top 5 wide receiver talent, at least not in the media's eyes or to any team's eyes where they're just going to focus a guy like that. So who knows whether that's really going to come into play. But I still think we have plenty of weapons without Dobbs. And I think our run game has been really strong. And if it's going to be cold, more power to the run. But with that being said, if A-Chain, is called upon quite a bit, he's a dangerous runner and he's always, liable to take it to the house with his speed. So I think that this has the potential to be a close game. Unless the cold really, really, really affects the Dolphins. Obviously, their last really, really cold game was against the Chiefs, and they only put up 1 TD. Obviously, that was in the playoffs last year. But with that being said, I'm going with my Packers. And those are my predictions for the 3 Thanksgiving games, and then the Black Friday game with the Chiefs hosting the Raiders at Arrowhead. But if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want more NFL content. I will be out of town for Thanksgiving, but I will still be uploading a prediction video for the Sunday games and Monday games on Friday is when that video will be able to be seen. But otherwise, I want to thank you all for watching. And go Pack Go.